All right, cool. Some of you, many of you showed up for the Guy Berry presentation. That was this week, wasn't it? Right, which is a good thing to have done. I'm going to be doing a class on disclosures, probably in December, because there's a whole lot more. And also inspections and reports and some other really fun stuff. He does have a great set of tapes and things like that. I know lots of agents that own them and listen to them. He has a price that he charges at his little seminars that's discounted, but if you talk to me, I can get you that price, even though you didn't sign up then if you want to get his tapes. Right? I worked out a deal with him. Pardon? CDs. I'm sorry. I'm old.
I thought you were talking an
Betamax. All right. So let's start with what I know is your favorite subject, the daily 10-4. Right? How many of you have been 10-4ing? We've got Sharmila. We have Sharmila. Who else? Okay. And Sharmila. Yeah. And okay. Adding 10, have you added 10 people to your database?
I did farming yesterday.
And farming.
Yeah. So,
What area are you farming?
in my neighborhood,
Oh, good. Connecting with 10 people.
I did.
All right. Write 10 follow-up notes.
I'll write today.
You're writing today. Good. But we're going to ask tomorrow. And previewing 10 homes.
I did 6 yesterday.
6.
I'm supposed to do 4 today.
That's right. And you've got. I used to have a system for new agents. I gave them a work schedule. I actually planned out like an 8-week what to do every day, and then I realized it made me feel good to do that, but nobody was following it besides, So I stopped, and it was a lot more previewing than 10, right? But that's a good number. I'm trying to think of, a good way to say this. I don't know if it's a good way to say it. Most people who get a real estate license and start a real estate career fail. All right. According to the National Association of Realtors, in 18 months, people who start paying board dues stop paying board dues in 18 months. That's 70% stop paying their board dues. Right. And the Department of Real Estate Statistics, which we have to extrapolate a little bit because they don't come out and say this, but based upon licenses issued and renewals 4 years later, it seems like that there's only about 10% of the people who get a real estate license that renew it at the end of 4 years, right? So 70% are gone in 18 months and 90% are gone by the end of 4 years, and this is not probably early retirement. Right? Do you understand? If you wanted to know why those statistics were true, it's not because they made so much money that they decided they didn't have to work anymore. It's because they didn't make enough money to even warrant paying the dues to be a member of the Board of Realtors or to go through the process of getting the 45 hours of continuing education. You only need 15 the first 4 years, and paying the fees to have the license issued again. Again, something that we're going to talk about today might make the reasoning behind this, but the number one reason why this happens is that most people who get into real estate don't do anything to find clients. One of the questions I used to ask people was, which was very, I think, for some unnerving, which is, if you didn't sell real estate, what would you sell instead? Right? And to a lot of people, they look at me like, well, what do you mean? First of all, I don't really consider this selling. I often heard that. And I wouldn't sell anything instead. I don't like sales. That's why I'm in real estate. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you something. If you're at a party and somebody introduces themselves as a life insurance agent, you run to the other side of the room. But if they're a real estate agent, it's safe to talk to them most of the time, right? Because they're probably not going to ask you any questions about buying or selling real estate. Right? That's the truth. Right? Many people get into the business because they like homes. I have people saying, I like homes. I like looking at homes. I like decorating homes. I think I'll be good at real estate. Right? But then this raises its head. right? And if you don't actually talk to people about buying and selling real estate, do you understand real estate sales don't just happen? It depends upon what you do. My plan when I was at the other company, Citra 21, I used to tell people to talk to 5 a day, right? Because they weren't as smart as you guys are or advanced, so I had lower expectations, right? Yeah, but you understand if you talk to 5 people a day, 5 days a week, this is because people are finding 10 burdensome. 5 times 5 is 25, right? Times 4, because we're rounding a little bit, would be 100, times 12 would be 1,200 people, right? And if you were to divide, thinking that well, maybe they sell once every 15 years, that group, that's going to come out to be 8 transactions, assuming you only got 10% of that business, right? 5 a day. You could do 8 transactions. The sad thing is that most people don't do 5 a day, right? Let alone 10. At Bold, the classes that some of us are going through, the number is 20 a day, right? Do you understand? You're looking at Mercedes Benzes if you're doing 20 a day, right? I'm just saying. So, and those of you that are in my coaching program, which is just about everybody, not everybody, but just about everybody, we're going to unfortunately talk about this, right? Because and I have scripts and I have suggestions because you understand, I want you to not be the part that leaves the business. Because you don't have to be. Do you understand? If you look at some agents that are making a lot of money and you talk to them, you're going to be thinking, wow, how hard can this be, really? Right? And if you've never met anyone like that, I'll introduce you to some, right? What is it that they do that others do not do? It's this stuff, right? They're out talking to people every day, and they plan to do it, and they do it, and they follow up, and they get business. Right? So this is only optional if you don't want to make money. Right? Do you understand? It's only optional if you don't want to make money. And what you're trying to do, your milestones, counting your figures, right? How many appointments? Anybody get any appointments this week?
Not this week.
Not this week. You got it
I got one for next Monday.
for next Monday. How did you get that?
My phone calls.
You called people?
I called people. We had that time blocking. I know. I blocked time out, and I made my calls. One of the problems I ran into, and I'm sure other people have a similar problem, maybe not as bad as I do, is that I get people on the phone. We know it's spirit. Right now I'm using sphere of influence, and I'm calling old clients and old friends, and they talk so long.
But my suggestion for that is this is a common problem. First of all, her group is working with people she already knows, right? What we call in Keller Williams your Mets. And by the way, over 40% of buyers and almost 50% of sellers, when asked how did they find their real estate agent, it was because it was a referral or personal contact by the agent. Right? You understand? So that's almost half of all the business. By the way, it's another 20% or so are repeat customers, repeat clients. So now we're up to 60-70%, right? So what I would recommend that you do is that you say to them, because what you want to do is block time in the morning, preferably, to make these calls. And when somebody that you know wants to talk, you say, look, I'm at work right now. Is it okay? Can I call you back this afternoon, right? Right? Because I'm at work right now. And if you were to ask, like the owners, if they would rather you be talking business or personal at the office, they would probably say, well, business, right? So the idea is to get off, is that you might want to connect with them, but you need to say, in fact, one of our scripts is that you start by saying this is a business call, right? And I'd love to meet with you. Why don't we have coffee tomorrow? I'd love to hear all about it,
But sometimes, like this particular person, I've gone through 6 transactions with her. She's an investor, and she bought a home, she sold a home, and all that stuff. Well, this situation, there's no way I could disengage.
Well, if I'd done 6, I had a guy named Max that had cash, and would buy properties all cash. He'd bring a cashier's check, and he loved to talk to me, and I would talk to him.
Yeah.
Right? You understand? Because he would just, I probably did a dozen transactions with Max over the years.
Yeah,
So, yeah, but you understand, I think everybody gets the point, right? You understand? If let me just say it just to make clear, you need to block time. You need to focus during that time. You need to talk to people about real estate. If it gets into a long conversation, if possible, you want to reschedule that to another time so you can keep talking to people, right? And if you do that, you're going to get appointments, agreements, contracts, and when it says closed, that means checks, right?
And she's going to sell her house.
And she's going to sell her house. I would talk to her. Why don't you give us, what's her name? Never mind. Yeah, good.
I have a question on the notes.
Yeah.
So do you buy like things?
Go to
notes?
Staples, Office Depot, Office Max. What?
I got it from Target.
From Target. Target. Everybody sells them. You could probably find some with Keller Williams embossing, which is not necessary, right? Target. Everybody has these notes. Not everybody, but if Target has it, right? Dollar Store probably has them, right?
So
Yeah.
thank you notes.
Just a little thank you note. Yeah.
I have a problem. I can talk about the business. Problem is I cannot get to their contact information.
Well, the way to get contact information is to have something of value to send to them. One of the scripts that's in the first classes is I have some valuable information about the real estate market, which I'd like to send you from time to time. Can I get your email or your address? If somebody says no, first of all, one of the things that if emails are a lot easier, chances are they're on Facebook. If you look for them, you might be able to find them. If they own a home, if you talk to a title company, right? And one of the things that I'm going to bring in is I'm going to have a title company come in and talk about prelims and escrow. And the title companies will give you access to their website for free. And this site will pull up if you know their name.
First name?
You can, well, you need more than that. First and last name. You need more than I can't help, all you have is their first name, right? But you need to say, I want to send you something. Give me, can I have your email? I mean, you have to collect. In order to import contacts into eEdge, which is something that you need to learn how to do. There's videos on how to do it, and I help people do it. You need to have first name, last name, and either their email address or a physical address. Otherwise, they're not a contact.
I can get the physical address.
Well, then that's and then I can show you. There's a program that I use on Gmail that's called Rapportive, and if I have somebody, it'll find if they're on Facebook, LinkedIn. If you learn to Google search people, you'll find if they're on these networks, and there's some people that you can just talk to on Facebook. I've hired agents completely from Facebook, where I never sent them an email, never talked to them on the phone until they came into the office. All the communication was done by Facebook messaging, right? But we'll talk when we meet, not necessarily on Friday, we're not going to have time to do all this, but what I'm going to be is, for those of you that are here, every week I'm going to be here and having meetings with the people that I'm coaching, which here means you two, right? And most of you are on my schedule, which are you three.
My husband taught me something, and I thought it was really kind of aggressive at first, but he says, just ask for it. And so we go to networking meetings and things like that, and he has his phone in his hand,
Yeah.
to the contacts, and he asks them their name and gets their name down and say, how can I get a hold of you? What's your telephone number? What's
Right.
your email? And he gets all of it. He's amazing. But he just asked for it.
Right, you're going to find there's Spodio. There's sites where you can find a lot of this too. But if I just ask people, they have a card, ask for their card. I used to have it's made by a company called Card Scan. It was a USB powered thing and it would scan business cards and take the information and transfer it into a database. Right, and I would get stacks of people's business cards and and then upload them, right? But you need to start. one of the things that you need to do is to build a database, right? And that means you need to ask for information for people, right? All right.
I have another question.
Sure.
The house I missed yesterday, like people were not there. I always can send them direct mail, right?
Right.
Like flyers and all.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because yesterday evening when I was doing trick or treating, few of the neighbors, I was letting them know. So and then I asked them, is it okay if I put my business card in your letterbox? And they said, yeah, go ahead, please do.
Yeah.
So
The post office has opinions about putting things in the letterboxes, but have you talked to a title company yet about getting it? We're going to talk today, aren't we?
Yeah, 3
All right. We'll talk more about farming. You're in Blossom Valley too?
I'm planning to.
Yeah, that's where I farmed, right? So I can. Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
just a quick question. When you're farming or when you're sending out mailers, you're not going to input or import that whole database, like for an area if you're farming into your, all the addresses and names into your database, right?
Probably not,
Okay.
because the database that you have does have addresses. eEdge is more designed to produce emails, but it does produce mailers. However, what we'll talk.
That's a
I have thoughts about farming, right? I have thoughts about farming. And if you're going to mail things, my recommendation is a half-size postcard, right? And you get and sometimes it's better to have it black and white.
But you don't do mass mailing from your database.
Not from eEdge,
Right.
but we do. But I did mass mailings, but I got the list from the title company.
That's what I'm referring to.
Right, and I would have. I had a company that would make labels for me and put them on them and that sort of stuff. I don't. The title companies aren't allowed to give us the labels anymore. I don't think,
Right.
but it's an easy. You have to buy your own. They used to give us the labels too. God bless them.
They don't do it anymore?
Not labels. No, there's been lawsuits and things. Yeah.
So can you see us tomorrow, like after class, because today we're gonna go to.
Right, I understand. I'm in for a few minutes. What we need to do is to set up a schedule so that we'll meet every week, right? And we can meet at the same time. You two could meet together with me if you wanted, because most of the things I say to one person, I say to the other person. I'm going to be having group meetings over here as well as individual meetings, so we might as well start off. And tomorrow we'll set a time.
Tomorrow there's a geographic farming and door knocking.
That's over at the Campbell office. They're at the Gateway office. So, but they're invited. I'm going to,
So then I can schedule the same thing with you, right? Every week.
every week, right? That's the idea. That's the idea. You and Taj and Tim. All right.
Do you have any time the rest of the week to meet with us
No.
in your
No.
classes?
Yeah, yes, I will. Yes, that's fine. Don't worry. I'm still, the fact that you're not in my coaching program doesn't mean I won't talk to you.
Okay, so both of us need the same thing.
Well, I'd like to do it in a group rather than individually if you're doing the same thing. We'll just set up, not necessarily right now, but a time when all of us can meet. All right, because I'm also trying to help you get your technology going. All right. But what we're talking about today is something else that's important. It seems like every week there's something else that's important. And this one is about negotiations. And negotiations are so important that in the 2010 surveys and buyers of sellers, that when they ask buyers, what is it that you want a real estate agent to do for you? After find me a home, the number 2 thing is negotiation. They list they being buyers and sellers list negotiation skills near the top of the reasons why they would pick a real estate agent. How many of you have taken classes in negotiation? Oh. Are there resources available about are there books and things and videos and classes? And this is a class. So one of the things that you would want to focus, what you need to do, remember, I want you to be forget about all the people that leave the business. Of the people that are in the business, 80% of them make 20% of the money. And 20% of them make 80% of the money. right? So what you have is most people drop out, and the reason why most people drop out is because they thought it was easy, right? They think it's going to be easy, right? You know, you don't have to really do anything, and it's not as easy. There's a lot more learning, and they don't want to do that, right? It actually involves work, and they don't want to do that, right? And so they drop out. They got into it for the wrong reasons. But then when people are in it, most of the people that are in real estate don't do very many sales, right? And so if what you want to be, I hope, right, is I would assume, my assumption is that you all want to be in the 20% that's making 80% of the money, right? That you would like to be making enough money that you could buy the kind of car you would like, clothes that you would like, go on vacations that you would like, and do the things that you would like to do, right? One of the goals, it's not necessarily money being the goal. There are a lot of rich people. My friend Max was not a happy guy, although he had a lot of money, right? There are people with money that aren't happy, but there's an old saying, it was a famous boxer. I think it was Joe Louis. It was, if only old people would remember who he was. And he was being interviewed about this because he said, I've been rich and I've been poor, and rich is better. Right? You know, that was his, you know. So it allows you to fund what you want to do, right? Now, the reason I'm harping on this, because we're talking about negotiation, this is one of the things that many people get in the real estate spend no time learning. And if you want to be successful at something, you need to become a student of that thing that you want to be successful at, right?
That's true. Because the reason I chose you, because I believe you can lead me. You know, I do file tax for many people, and then I can see, right, oh, dang it, real estate expense. You can really claim it. But, okay, you don't have any expense? No. I mean, I don't ask, because my job is not to, but anyway, many people left. You know, I was curious, no time, because no one taught me.
Right.
The
Getting a real estate license is like getting a fishing license. The license does not catch any fish. Right? You understand? It's not having a license that catches fish. It's knowing how to fish. Right? And so that's what the goal here. And by the way, just so you understand, Ignite is just a primer. Right? You understand? If you're painting a house, you'd use more than one coat. This is not everything. This is just the beginning. Oh my God. They're like, oh. All right. So what this means is negotiation skills are important. It happens twice. Boy, this is a true statement. It happens twice during the countdown to payday. First is during the offer phase. Now, there's actually quite a few negotiations. Like, I think that you negotiate with the buyer to get them to work with you exclusively. You negotiate with the seller to get them to list with you. But what we're talking about today is the purchase agreement, right? But everything involves negotiation. You ought to listen to your kids. They're really good at it, right? Negotiating, right? They're very good at it, right? They know how to get what they want. Right, they don't give up or easy. No, they don't. They don't take no. One no. Does one no do it? Two no's.
Keep on asking.
Yeah, no. They keep on asking and they get the cookie usually, don't they? Right? They wear you down. You give them the cookie, right? And so you want to get the cookie. Anyhow, so it's during the writing of the agreement, getting them to accept your offer, and then it's during, they call it here the option period. I would call this the removal of contingencies, right? Which is necessary in order for it to close. Contingencies, if you're not familiar with them, are ifs. I'm going to buy the house if I accept the condition of the property. I'm going to buy the house if I accept the condition of the title. I'm going to buy the house if I get the loan that I said I wanted to get. There's a bunch of ifs, right? There's a bunch of ifs. And the big one usually has to do with the condition of the property. So after investing so much time and energy to move a lead all the way to agreement and then to a sales contract, don't let it fall through. Now, the ability to close, so the ability to negotiate is a necessary thing to close. If what I've found is that there's some agents that close almost every open escrow and some that don't. right? But good agents, if you asked them how many of your escrows close, they were like, almost all, right? What do you mean? 99%. Others, it's like 60%. All right? And
This includes negotiation between not only your buyer, but also with the contract and the seller.
right, and the other agent.
Right.
Right, we're going to talk about that. It involves getting out from the other agent what you need. Right, so this is important. It's just because you get a buyer's offer accepted does not mean you should start looking at travel magazines yet. Right? You understand? Just because the offer's been accepted doesn't mean you're ready. You've got money to spend. So we're talking about negotiating win-win agreements. Chris Heller. What are the top 3 reasons that deals fall through during negotiation? And he said agents, and agents are the top 3 reasons that deals do not close. Agents. There's an old saying that real estate agents do not sell houses. Houses sell houses. Real estate agents screw up sales. Right? Do you understand? More often than not, the real estate agent derails a transaction that would have closed, and they get into the way instead of helping. Don't put yourself into the equation. It's like gasoline on fire. Just be the messenger. Keep your opinions and emotions out of it. As I tell agents, you're not going to live there. Nobody cares that you don't like the house or neighborhood. Right? I mean, I've had agents say, I really hate that neighborhood. Shouldn't I tell the buyers that this is really a bad neighborhood? No. Right? Do you understand? You should provide them with the information that would allow them. Remember I told the story of the duplex with the snake and the iguana? Right? I really wanted to say to these people, this is really awful, isn't it? But instead I said, what do you think? And they said, we want to buy it. I asked if they wanted to include the snake, and they said no. They didn't want the snake to go with the house, right? So, but you understand, you're not going to live there, right? The fact that you think the bedrooms are small, you understand if you say, well, these bedrooms are really small. I'd hate to live in a house with bedrooms, right? You understand? You think agents don't do this, right? So you're not going to live there, right? It's not you're. This is sort of a bad metaphor or analogy, but it's, doctors have to sort of remove themselves, right? Do you understand? Especially if you're in a part where people die a lot, right? Because if you took it personally, you would be depressed all the time. And watch House, right? If you wonder, anyhow, the real estate agents, you have to be detached. I've sold really ugly homes to people. I've sold homes where the owner said, well, the buyers, they're not going to live there, are they? Right? Because he just expected the house to be torn down. Right? And I said, yeah, they intend to move in. And he's like, oh my God, well, all right, right? If a buyer wants to make an offer, it's because they want to buy the property. If the seller wants to sell a home, don't assume that they look at it the way you do. Your job is not for them to find the house you want. It's for them to find the house they want. What we're going to do today, learn common points of negotiation, the 3 Ps. We're going to practice, that's always a good thing, and discover techniques for minimizing risk. And again, we have affirmations. This is like software for the mind. I tune into the needs of those around me and find solutions that work. And yes, we think it's a good idea for you to have affirmations every day and to say them. Market conditions influence who has the most advantage in negotiations. That's a true statement. Right now, sellers. It wasn't that long ago, though, that it was buyers. Right? There was a time not long ago when it was a strong buyer's market. Right? And homes were on the market. There were lots of expired listings. And then it changed. Guess what? It'll change again. Right? It'll soon, probably. Because usually, do you understand, as prices go up, more people put their homes on the market. As prices keep going up, more people put their homes. They keep putting homes on the market until there's a lot of homes on the market. Until prices stop going up. right? And then when prices go down, buyers start them, and then the prices go up, right? I think it's called supply and demand. Make it happen. You may not realize it, but you're always negotiating when there is something that you want, the new car for your child to do the dishes, someone else. The truth is that whatever you want is often owned or controlled by someone else. Whatever you want is often owned or controlled by someone else. And the way to get it is through negotiation, which is, the definition I like is here, negotiation is a dialogue through which two or more parties reach a mutual agreement. I'll go with that one. It's a dialogue. So we have a buyer and the buyer's agent, and they're negotiating. The seller and the listing agent are negotiating. And then there's negotiations between the two agents. We're going to talk about all of those parts. Common points of negotiation.
Okay, how can you negotiate with the listing agent? They never pick up the call. They never return your email.
Well,
Like,
that's because of the market. But you send them an offer.
I submitted an offer on the ADIO, and that listing agent called me back yesterday, and they say bank wants no appraisal contingency.
Right. First of all, the number of REOs are dropping dramatically, as are short sales. REOs and short sales are notoriously hard to negotiate because you're dealing with banks. And if you ever wanted to negotiate, go into your bank and try and negotiate with them. Right? Ask for something. Ask them to give you something. Right? See how that works. Right? And so they're notoriously bad, but because prices are rising, the number of those has dropped dramatically. I think it was in this room where I did a search how many active listings were REOs, and very few. Right? So I can't help you. I don't have any magic for negotiating with a bank. Right?
One thing I do with buyers is that I tell them, if you see a house, even if there's no sign on it or anything like that, that you really like, that you like the area and everything, call me with the address, and I will go and see if they will sell it to you.
Right.
And you just negotiate with the buyer if it's not on the market. And if it's coming on the market, then you call the agent and you talk to them in advance and get it sold before it ever goes on the market.
That's prospecting, right? Yeah. But what we're going to, let's talk about the different things. What are the common points of negotiation? And because I'm lazy and tired of doing this, what I'd like to do is to have each of us, maybe we could start in the back left with Jennifer. If you could read the first one about price, and then we'll move around.
Okay, so I'll just say the most common points of negotiations are as follows. Price. Whilst the sales price is the primary factor in negotiation, it is not necessarily at the bottom line. In a situation where a seller receives multiple offers at the same price, it is the terms of those offers, in addition to the buyer's financial position, that will determine which one wins.
All right, thanks. It's not always about price. Oftentimes it is. But that's why the reason why you'd like to be there when the offer is being presented is so that you can explain why. And the problem with right now is if you're competing against an all cash, no contingency buyer, and they are offering the same price, they're going to get it. Right. And so I've had agents say to me, well, how do I compete with that? And I said, why don't we work on finding investors that have all cash and are willing to buy without contingencies, right? That's something I'll talk about. I'll talk about that sometime when we're coaching. There's ways of finding people who invest in real estate, right? You understand? The title companies can help with those lists of those people. All right, Taj, do you want to read the next one, which is terms?
Sure. Terms. The terms or conditions of an offer may be financial or time-based in nature or both. When the buyer and seller can't agree on the sales price, the following 5 offer terms come into play.
All right. Now, what this is saying about time-based or financial, if you know what the seller wants to do, for example, some sellers want to move out and quickly, others not so much. So one of the things that I know that agents are doing is they're offering 2 weeks free it would be called a rent back, but the seller gets 2 weeks to stay in the property without having to pay any rent, right? Now, you understand for a buyer, there's a little financial, nick that they get with that because they've got a loan on the property for a couple of weeks. But it gives them, but you understand how to a seller that might make the process a whole lot easier, right? Because they have their money, they have 2 weeks, and they can go do something else, right? So that's a time-based point, right? Others would like to get out as soon as possible. Not everybody wants to close in 10 days, right? Not everybody wants to close in 10 days. Yes?
So I have a question on that. If they're not out, what happens if you let them stay for 2 weeks
And they don't leave?
and they don't?
You have to
leave?
evict them. Takes 28 days.
Well, it might take longer.
Might take longer, yes. If you're good, if you have a good eviction process, you can do it in 28, but it might take longer. And you can sue them, and you know they have money,
That's true.
right? That's the difference between a seller rent back and a typical renter. We know they have money, right?
They just got.
Right, we know they have money. All right. All right, let's go through number one, closing costs. Coco?
Closing costs. Traditionally paid by the buyer, closing costs are in addition to the purchase price. Securing the cash to pay these expenses can be difficult for some, especially for first-time home buyers. Therefore, the seller may be asked to pay a portion of the closing cost. When you represent the seller, tell your clients that it's common for seller to fund part of the closing cost in the first-time home buyer price range.
Yeah, in a buyer's market, there's actually times when it's hard to sell properties. There's actually times when it's difficult, right? Especially the lower end, right? The middle moves pretty fast, usually. But so, can sellers help buyers with the down payment? The answer is yes. Right? Can they give them credit towards closing costs? The answer is yes. So this is not everything that we're going to talk about will work today, right? Because right now they just put on the market to get multiple offers and not worry about it. But by February, the market may be entirely different again, right?
So this doesn't apply.
Right now,
to today's market.
right now, sellers. But you understand that if you have a condominium that's in a bad, you're having trouble selling it, right? A lot of condominiums are having difficulty right now, right? Because there's a lot of issues, and so and most of the investors know that single-family homes appreciate better and are a more stable investment than townhomes and condominiums. Investors know that. Right, so the all-cash buyers aren't swarming over the first-time condos, right? And a lot of those, and that's one of the things about studying the market. If you start looking at segments of the market, you're going to find that there are a lot more of those that have been on the market and that are expiring and that aren't selling, right? So in that kind of a market, a seller might need to help, right? Right. So it's everything is local. All right. Anyhow, how about closing date?
Closing date. When the seller has a very specific time frame for moving, the buyer has the upper hand and can leverage this by being more flexible with the closing date and less flexible with the offer price.
Right. Closing quickly, closing slowly. Right, but this requires that you are able to talk to the listing agent and ask them questions.
That'll be shown in the listing sometimes, right?
Sometimes.
Buyer or seller wants a.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes. By the way, one of the things that I've done as an agent is when you have trouble with the listing agent, if it's owner occupied, I would drop by to preview the property when they're there and ask them. There's no law that says that an agent for a buyer can't be polite and chat with the owners. No law says you can't do that. Gee, why are you folks moving? Where are you going to? That sounds nice. Why there? When do you want to be there? Really? Are you excited about the move? Really?
The law says what?
There's no law. Let's say I represent buyers, and I'm not, and the property's on the market, and it has a listing agent who doesn't return phone calls, right? And doesn't seem to want to talk. I would sometimes go to the house to preview it when I thought the owners might be there,
I see. So
And-
you talk to the owner.
and I would chat with them. Right? I'm not trying. It's a violation of the rules for me to try and solicit the listing away from them, and I'm not supposed to negotiate directly with them. But there's nothing that says I can't be polite and ask them some chatty questions about about what's going on, right? And then they'll, All right, Tim, conveyances.
Conveyances. While conveyances are defined by a locality's board of realtors, the rule of thumb is that attached fixtures stay with the home and non-realty items, personal property, go with the seller. In negotiations, a buyer may request that certain personal property items stay with the home, such as furniture, window treatments, or a refrigerator.
Yeah. In a seller's market, they don't leave stuff. But in a buyer's market, they might. And by the way, we'll talk more about this. This is something that should be done outside of the purchase contract. We're not Western Appliance, right? Do you understand? And by the way, lenders don't like it when they see stuff being included, right? Because they're not making what's called a package mortgage, right? Does everybody remember from your real estate class what a package mortgage is? It's a loan on real and personal property. Right, and so if you have a purchase agreement, it includes refrigerators, washer and dryers, and things like that, and you're asking the lender to make a loan to buy it, they're saying, well, we're lending you money to buy a refrigerator and a washer and dryer. Right, you understand? As I've told agents, we're not Western Appliance. Right, we're not trying to sell appliances. Right, but they can make a separate agreement to do those things. Right.
A lot of times people want to, plus houses, like the kitchen is built with slide-in refrigerators.
But this is something that has to be negotiated, right?
But that's a personal item, seller can tell them. So even they say this is come with a house, because we move another state, we want everything new. Still let the lender may refuse.
The lender may not like it. I would do it on a different piece of paper. I would do it on a different, if you write this stuff in purchase agreements, if you're writing in extra stuff that's included in the sale, besides the property, which means real property, lenders get unhappy, right? And one of the things that I would make sure is that if you talk to a lender, you would want to make sure how they feel about this.
Because seller doesn't to give you any price, you know what I mean?
Yes, I know that, but there is a price, and that price includes personal property. And you're getting a loan based on that price. Do you understand, lenders? I'm just saying, it's just. I just find it's very simple to use a different piece of paper that you don't give to the lender.
So you've seen that?
I've seen lenders say you can't be. So that we're not lending. It's not a package mortgage. We're not lending on personal property. We don't want all this other stuff included. This is just a straightforward. Now, just as a comment about this. This is what, if you were to stand outside of Home Depot and watch people that walked out with fireplace inserts, fireplace screens, and the fireplace, those little tools that come with the fireplace, and you ask them what they did for a living, you'd find real estate agent comes up way more often than our percentage of the population. Right? Why would real estate agents be buying, the little shovel and the little hook and why would real estate agents be buying that stuff all the time? The answer is because the seller took it with them, right? So one of the things that you need to be really clear on is, I sold a townhouse once, and the seller had a candle, arbor, and it went up the wall, and it went out, and it was made of wood, and there's a whole bunch of candles on it, and it was screwed into the wall. Real or personal property?
Real
Depends on the real property.
It's a fix, right? So it's real property.
Is everything? First of all, she took it with her, and the other agent called up and said, "What do you mean it was screwed into the wall?" And I said, "It's artwork. It's art." Supposing it was in a Monet painting, which they had screwed into the wall so it wouldn't fall off and break. Does it mean that the buyer gets it?
No, but
No, it's painting. It's art. It's art. Does it say artwork is included in the sale on the list in the purchase contract? Does it say artwork? So then the guy said, well, it's got candles, it's lighting, right? It's a lighting fixture. I said, no, right? This is not designed to light the home, right? This was art. It was a decoration.
But we have to find out.
Yes. So if you represent a buyer, would you want to ask about all those things? Right? How about in the backyard, they have plants in great, big, heavy concrete planters? Right? Real or personal? Well, who knows? Right? Do you understand? Who knows? Because plants in pots are probably not real property. How about great, big, heavy pots? Right, in the backyard? Well, I don't know. So do you understand if this is what messes up? I've seen people fighting over fireplace screens. I actually had a buyer say once, well, I wouldn't have bought the house if I knew I wasn't getting the fireplace insert, right? That's what they actually said, right? That would have been a deal killer. They took the fireplace insert. It was one of those things where it would push out the hot air when it was right. But you could lift it up and take it out, right? You understand? So they lifted it up and took it out.
Even though it's like if it's attached to a gas line.
Well, that's a different thing. It's if you read, one of the things that you're going to want to study a little bit is what does the purchase contract say is included and what does it say is not included. If it's connected to a gas line, it's included. But if it's something that you can lift up and walk out with, is it included? Probably not. Right, but do you understand that you don't want to be fighting about this in the middle of escrow, right? You don't want to be fighting about this in the middle of escrow. And if there's any doubt, you want to ask and get it into the contract. The most important test is whether or not the agreement says it is or not. All right, we did conveyances, earnest money, and option fee. Ross, how about that one?
It's in the seller's best interest for the buyer to put as much into escrow as possible, as soon as possible. While our locality's board of realtors has a standard practice for when earnest money and option fee, where applicable, is deposited, the amount is often negotiated.
The 3% is the maximum that you're allowed to keep as liquidated damages in the state of California on a residential property, 1 to 4 units. However, it sometimes looks good if your down payment is higher, if your deposit is 10%. It looks good, right? And although as a listing agent, if the owner said, wow, that one has got a big deposit, I would say, well, you need to realize that if it ever goes to this, that you're only allowed to keep 3% under the liquidated damages clause. However, I would also point out it probably shows the buyer is more motivated, because them getting the other 7% is not going to happen immediately, right? Do you understand that there would be, they put their money into escrow, right? Which means they're probably, they're not thinking, if that check goes in, they're probably not thinking we're going to back out soon, right? So do you understand that what does a sell? I've in markets like this, I saw this is the biggest spread I've seen, and it was an expensive house. Took a $80,000. The second offer was $80,000 less than the top offer, but it was an absolute sure thing, right? And the seller was saying, "Well, I'm making a lot more money than I ever thought I would make, and I don't want to ever go through this again." And this one is an absolute for sure thing, in that the higher one had a loan and it was a little, and it wasn't as much of a down payment, and there was more things that could go wrong, and it was $80,000 was what they knocked off the table in order to be sure that the property was going to sell.
So was it a cash?
No, it was the guy had 40% down or something ridiculous. And it was verified. He had a letter from the bank saying he had 40% down and he was going to put the 40%. If you have 40% down, you're going to get a loan, right? You understand? I mean, you're going to get a loan, right? It doesn't have to appraise. It doesn't have to be really close. It just, it was, because the loan was based on 20% down. So if it, over appraisal, he had so much room that, because we were worried that it wouldn't appraise. And the other guy, what if it doesn't appraise, right? What if it doesn't appraise, then they can't buy it, right? So they offered more, but it was going up and up and up and up, right? Yeah.
I have a question. So, right now you're doing buyer's agent. If you really like it, you really want it. If the second offer is better to put. But if you are a listing agent, set aside, and if the seller asks, "Wow, I got a good offer, but second one is much less, but I got a huge deposit." If they ask your opinion.
Well, see, my opinion is, first of all, you want to know what's important to them. My opinion is the second one is this one, there's very little that can go wrong, right? There's nothing that's perfect, but if they have enough cash that they can cover because the problem in a market like this with multiple offers is appraisals, right? That's the problem.
So we can
right?
give them my opinion.
Well, you can if they ask you, yes, you give them your opinion. But you see, it's up to them. On one hand, this one is for $80,000 more,
Yeah, last
right?
one is their choice.
This one, however, because of the size of their available cash, is most likely to close. And I knew the loan agent that they had, and I knew. I mean, it was like this guy says there's no problem. He's verified the funds. I've known this guy for decades. This one is probably going to close. This one. If it does close, you're going to get more money, but there's many more things that go wrong. You understand, in a multiple offer market, it's the investors that have cash that create the comparables that lenders can get, that appraisers can use in the future. But right now, what did the last house sell for? Right? And if it's $20,000 less than what your offer is, and they have an FHA loan, there's going to be problems. Right? Because it's probably not going to appraise at that price. Just because somebody offers it and the seller accepts it does not mean the appraiser is going to appraise it.
And they'll come back and try to renegotiate.
And then they renegotiate when it comes in low.
Yeah.
Right?
That on purpose.
So if you have a big down payment and if you say or you're willing to remove the appraisal contingency, right? Now you can't remove it from the lender, but you can remove it from you, and the difference is that you, as the buyer, have to have the cash to cover the difference, right? And you understand there are sellers right now that might be, because things could get better and things could get worse, right? Nobody knows. I used to tell them, they would say, well, is it going to get better next year or worse? And I said, well, I used to have a crystal ball, but it broke. And apparently you just can't get the parts for it anymore, right? I'm on back order, and as soon as it comes, and I've told people, if I could predict what would happen next year, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, right? Do you understand? I'd be rich because I'd be able to predict the future. I can't predict the future. So do you understand? They're looking at it. It's not always about the money, right? Right? It's not always, if somebody has enough cash and they show it.
I was just afraid of so many lawsuits, right? To list and disclose.
Well, but you're not, this is simply explaining to them the reality
Right. So
of,
what I feel,
yeah.
I would take.
Well, no, I don't say to them, if I were you, I would take this one.
Oh no. Okay.
No, I would say, this one's more money, but it's got a loan, and we're in a market where appraisals are hard because there aren't comps to support this price. I know you're happy that we're getting more than the list price, but there aren't comparables that support this price. We should assume that it's not going to appraise. That's just the truth. We should assume it's not going to appraise. Now the question is, can the buyer make up the difference? See, what buyers are thinking is once we get them into escrow and they're taking the home off the market and they're no longer doing open houses, right? And it's not going to appraise. I've told buyers, just go ahead and make that offer. It's not going to appraise. We're going to be able to talk them down later, right? When it doesn't appraise. All right, you want to do repairs and then? Yeah, Sharmila has left the building.
Repairs. Most offers are contingent on the outcome of the home inspection and necessary repairs. Depending on the complexity of the repairs, buyers may ask the seller to make the repairs prior to closing, subject to a follow-up inspection. Deduct the repair cost from the sales price or pay a lump sum at closing to cover the costs.
One of the, if you represent the seller, you've heard me say this, and those of you that heard Guy Berry talk the other day heard him say it, is that you want to get all the inspections and reports that you possibly can and have them available at the time the offer is being made so that all of this is included in the negotiations and not a surprise. Right, and however, what could you do if you represented a buyer? My friend Max didn't care about, he had a contractor that he worked with that was going to do all the repairs. Right, he wanted to buy fixer-uppers, and I was doing a lot of probates. That's how I met him. I was doing a lot of probates, and he had his contractor come in with him. By the time he wrote the offer, he already had a written estimate of what it would cost to fix the property. Right, he'd already had the numbers as to how much he was going to sell it for when he fixed the property and how much he was going to make, and he had a minimum percentage he wanted to make. Right, you understand? And he would bring a cashier's check to close. Right? So, but you understand the reason that he was able to do this is he had a contractor that he knew and trusted look at the property. Now, I'm not saying that a contractor replaces a roof inspector, a termite inspector, a property inspector, and a chimney inspector, but sometimes it could be close, right? Do you understand if you had a cash investor, they probably need somebody like this anyhow in the stable because they're going to be fixing things. That would allow you, because the problem is that sometimes the listing agent does not have all the inspections and reports. Right, and so you're negotiating in the middle, right? As a listing agent, I would always have them just so that we weren't negotiating in the middle of the transaction. Tony DiCello said the three areas are price, time, inclusions, and exclusions. Not a bad one. So what we're going to do now, because this is a good one for me because I don't have to talk as much. Let me see, 2, 4, 6. When Sharmila comes back, we'll have an even number. But what I want you to do is we're going to take turns. So there will be an A and a B. And I guess there might be a C until Sharmila comes back. And we're going to go through each one of these. And I want you to practice saying these words. So one person is going to handle the buyer's request for inclusion of personal items. And then you're going to switch and then move on to the next one and to the next one and to the next one. And since Sharmila's wheeling and dealing, maybe the three of you, or I could do it until she comes back. How about that? So, you two, Taj and Jennifer, do you want, which one of you? And Tim and I can, why don't you three do it, and then when Sharmila comes, we can, does this make sense?
Yep.
All right, cool.
I'd be more than happy to write that in the contract. I feel when you start involving people's personal property becomes more emotional. You're asking for their antiques and their furniture is different than asking for the refrigerator or the washer and dryer. I don't like to get involved in personal property. If those are items that you want, let me call the other agent and see if the seller's willing to go and part with the items before we actually put it in the contract. If you've really got your heart set on those things, let me call the other agent and see if they're negotiable. If the other agent says they can consider including the item for the right price, then we can throw it in there. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think we just go through.
Okay, cool.
So I've had people do
So I'd
that.
be more than happy
Wow,
to write
that blows me away.
contract copy.
They're worried about a washer or dryer or refrigerator.
Yeah, I
Of
have,
course, I
like,
could
a
have
table that
it becomes
I
more
have-
emotional.
That's the worst thing
They're
that
asking for
I'll
antiques
tack.
and furniture.
So did you do it on a separate agenda? Yes, that's how we used to do it, but it sounds like he does it, he does it on a separate page.
Then you're taking liability, legal liability.
Or even willing to part with the
It's
item.
attached to
Between,
it.
between the two buyers, so the buyer and seller.
Yeah, because they're not gonna part this
As we call the other agent,
without
something
some
negotiable.
compensation.
The other agents
It's something that they,
price.
it was just
And
a
you can
sales
throw it
contract.
in there.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Okay.
Okay, so then.
Could-
So clarify the
Buying a
inspection.
house, I like the table.
I understand
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
concerned about
People
the
understand.
inspection.
A fire
I
place.
recommend that
Yeah, the fire place.
we negotiate to our dollar amount so
Okay,
that
so
we
here we
can
go. Clarify the
who
inspector
addresses
report for
these
your buying.
issues. We need to
I
focus on
understand,
the big
I'm a little
items,
concerned
the
about
unknown
the
issue,
inspection report.
heating,
So
air
I recommend that we
conditioning.
negotiate for
Discover
a
what
dollar
amount
amount.
of money will be needed to accomplish
Who
these
addresses these
repairs.
issues.
And
We need to
have
focus on the big
an
items,
back
the
to the
unknown
site.
issues.
If there are
Heating,
big
air
items,
conditioning.
maybe that we need
Discover
to
what
walk
amount of
away.
money they'll need to
But we
accomplish
shouldn't
these
be
repairs.
alarmed just because
Counter that
this is
amount
law.
back to the
The
seller.
seller is required
So
by the
big
real
items,
estate
right.
commission to
It's
point
right
out
because
all
you
items.
can walk away.
But we'll have to
There shouldn't
determine
be
whether the
alarms
items
just because he
will
wants to
affect the house long
The seller is required by the real estate commission to point out all items. So we have to determine.
When your buyer wants to sell it or make repairs, I understand this is important to you. In my experience, repairing this item typically costs about $700. While that's not inconsequential, is it worth losing the house? All things being equal, the seller had a competitive offer for exactly $700 more. Gave you the chance to match that offer in order to keep the house. Wouldn't you want to match that offer? Yeah.
That's right. That's
I know, right?
I recommend that you sell it counter the
Here,
low offer.
as your system.
I pulled up the information on what is sold in the price range since I put your house on the market.
She was working with an old gentleman.
Next to the houses have sold since then. Obviously, your house was not what these people were looking for. Then you created a value for your property compared to what they want. We have an offer on the table now. It may not be exactly what you're looking for. Their offers haven't come
You know,
close.
she didn't have.
I know you've been doing your real life scripts.
Making an offer based on the house that's relevant. We're not gonna turn them away because they made a loss.
USHotbuy.com, they found my profile from Keller Williams
We
website.
have their offers. Just tell you, we can
Hotbuy.com.
price that's cheap.
No, it's just for the agents' website. So they said like most of the buyers or sellers, they look into their website and find the agent from there.
Well, don't, you can spend all the money you have.
I know.
I understand those important
When we talk to that, we'll look at it.
But most buyers are not looking there. Zillow, for example, is one that I know agents get business from. Zillow and Trulia, and you've heard of them, right? Right.
If the seller had a competitive offer, for example,
Can I chime in?
and gave you the chance to match that offer in order to keep the house, where did you take, did you want to match that?
You can go back.
It is a substantial
Page
age,
8.
essentially an investment.
Where did you take us next quarter?
Yeah. No, basically, you just read through negotiations now. Okay? So go ahead and read the first one. You know, like Mike said, you've been practicing, real life practicing, so you should be old hat to.
Sure, exactly. The taxes are gonna be way more than that, right?
What does that cost?
So I'm gonna
I'd be more than
recommend.
happy to write that into the contract for you. And when you start involving people, especially when it becomes more when you're asking for the antiques and the furniture, it's different than asking for the refrigerator or the washer machine. I don't like to get involved with if those are items that they really call the other agencies and the sellers are even willing to part with the items before we actually exchange.
But we have an option.
People have really got to go concentrate on those things. Let me call the other agents and see if they're negotiable. The other agent says they might consider including the items for the right price. Then we can throw it in there. Other
Ways, you can say,
We
know that they really
Clarify the inspection report for your buyer. I understand that you were concerned about the inspection report. I recommend that we negotiate for a dollar amount so we can keep control of who addresses these issues. We need to focus on the big items, the unknown issues, heating, air conditioning, and the roof. Discover what amount of money will need to accomplish these repairs and counter that amount back to the seller. If there are big items that maybe that we need to walk away, but you shouldn't be alarmed just because the list is long. The seller is required by the real estate commission to point out all items, but we'll have to determine whether the items will affect the house long-term for you.
It's just outraged that you guys read the question.
Sure.
It's your turn.
I understand this is according to my experience repairing this item typically cost about $700.
Prepare yourself.
While that's not inconsequential,
Negotiate high cost
or
repairs.
closing the
proceed
house
Receive
with
repair
power
requests.
and
Buyers
the
have
had a
buyers
complete
have
offer
had
structural
engineering
structural
engineers recommended that 8 years but underneath the house. What I know from my experience.
Recommend that your seller counter a low offer.
What I know from my
I
experience.
pulled up the information on what was sold in the price range that put your house on the market.
Within the next
10 houses have sold since then. Obviously, your house was not that
Bids
big,
within the
what
next
these
couple
people
of
were looking
days.
for.
That we can
It
go
didn't
back,
create enough
back
value
to
in
the
the
buyer
price
with
compared to what they
their
bought.
option periods, let them know.
But we have an offer on the table now. It may not be exactly what you hope for starting out, but let's go over the information.
We don't have to
There
listen
are
to
offers that
structural
will come in
engineer.
low.
The fact that
Often the buyers are making an offer based on the price of the plans or relative.
Decide not to put
We're
in
not going to
repairs.
turn them away because they made this so, this
If
low
you decide
offer.
not to put.
We know that they really like your house or they wouldn't have made it. We have the opportunity to sell your house at a negotiated price that you
And
need.
try to negotiate.
We're going to make counter offer back to the right, one that will reflect the price that you would like.
Call the buyer
I've
back.
already seen the price that they would like to pay.
Contract.
I recommend that we counter offer and try and get them the price that you would like. What's the bottom line price
This
that you would consider?
contract does terminate.
Then it leaves the negotiator room with your numbers above your number. Most counter offers are back and forth.
Now, you have a report saying that you are aware of the foundation.
Yeah.
New information is disclosure.
This is really interesting. The buyers have had a structure engineer take a look at the house. And the engineer is recommending 8 years repaired underneath the home. What I know from my experience is that this costs approximately $300.
The next part might be.
I can recommend to you.
Yeah,
Recommend to you something.
that's like, you said HDR.
It's 7 days, you can get back to the buyer. Option period is flexible, whether he thinks this is something you can take care of, and then he can take this.
Yeah, that's about
We don't have to listen to the structural engineer, but the buyer, we have a structural engineer, he has to go. You can decide not to pay for years, or perhaps even want to
Nobody
pay
believes
for
that.
structural
We
engineer
have actually
out there, and get
dropped
his
the
opinions. Then you can utilize two structural engineers recommendations, you can call the buyer back and try to
You're kind of the
House you sell it.
and they can
only also like person.
The buyer himself is asking that you need the stove that you kind of pass with the light fixtures down the area.
you have a
I know those are on like they
stay
can
in this
leave.
for an hour or for
You want to replace the light fixture with that,
this
you
will have
put
to go
something else
to
up. Share that is comparable light fixture or give them the credit back for that.
Cancel your seller when the
Tell
buyer
them that you
requests
really want to keep
personal
the
items.
piece of first product, see if we might keep
No,
this
the
together
buyer in
that
this
way.
offer is asking that you
You
use
can
the
let it
stove
go,
and find
process
attached
her
to
offer.
that light
You
fixture
know,
in the dining
I
room.
had one over here.
I know those are items you like to take care of.
New house, new stove.
Are you looking to replace that light fixture in the
Sounds
dining
good,
room?
and then attach
Put
to
something
They
else up
have
there.
one of the old
Is it,
fashioned.
you could put something else up there that is a comparable light fixture or give them credit back for that. Let me go back to them and tell them you really want to keep those pieces of personal property and see if you might keep this deal together that way.
And this one, this
So,
That's
so
that.
you want the great.
Very good. So how's your deal going?
That's what I heard from the listing agent yesterday, the price was not raised up to
Yeah, I don't plan on,
It's an RAO or?
I
Oh, it is?
yeah, appreciate it.
That's the one you're looking at?
No, they're first time buyers. So, but they really like it. I personally, I love it. This is nice.
But it doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't matter, but they,
matter.
they like that house as well. And they just said, the moment this house now. So I had a chat with the son and he said, he can make up the difference up to 15,000, but not more than that. So I thought
So his limit is 15,000, but has he already made an offer?
we, the last, as per comparables, the last house was sold in that neighborhood in September, was 425, so that's, we made the offer 455, way behind.
Oh, you another 20, well, so you went to, let's see, what they had listed at what, 425?
429.
No, 429, okay, and you offered 455.
55.
So you pretty much run this max.
Max, yeah.
Oh.
Maybe
All right, let's,
but he can go still 5,000 more, 460.
Let's get going. Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, well,
Keeping my fingers
Ha-
crossed.
I may not have mentioned this before, but there's the idea of scheduling time every day to practice scripts. Have I mentioned that?
That's a good idea.
That's not, maybe block out some time. What? I did?
I'm practicing.
And notice it says, further study, consult the KWU, that's KW University, Scripts. There's a Scripts catalog for more scripts to use with buyers and sellers during the negotiation process. Also, if you've gone to the site and typed in Ignite and clicked on the Learn More, you're going to see, well, this. And you can download individual sessions, you can download the whole thing, and there's a toolkit, which includes, I would go with all the toolkit files. There's they've broken it down into buyer and seller tools. If you speak Spanish, you can download that. If you speak Canadian, right, you can, I don't know what the difference is, but there's there's Word documents, PDFs, and I would recommend doing that.
You just click Ignite.
If you go into, let's say we were starting at the top, right?
Because some of them, they charge fee.
No,
But this is free, right?
this is free.
I did go, and then this is the money, $90. I said, wow, everything is charged. I was picking all.
You don't know. The $90, we'll talk when we meet. You may have signed up for the pro version of eEdge, which is a trial period, but you don't have to do that, right? But we're not, there is no, unfortunately, you're not being charged to go through these classes, unfortunately, right? So, what? Not even,
yeah.
and you got what you paid for. Right? Yeah, I know, I hear that too. So,
Mike?
it was worth every dime. So what you're doing is, mine looks kind of funny because of the connection to the, but if you go there and type in Ignite, right, if you just type in Ignite, if you want to see all this, and you wait, all right, and then it's slow today, and the first thing is KWU Ignite and the KWU Course Ignite. Let's try that one. And by the way, there's a video on how to do the daily 10-4 using Ignite, but which since you're having trouble keeping track of all of the people you're talking to. So we're going to click on Toolkit, and here are all the toolkit files. And it's a zip file, and you click on them, they download. You click on Student, and you can download all the handouts to all the classes, all at once. And if you want to see the special things that they tell me, you can click on Instructor. I believe you can. I don't know. I haven't looked. They may only have that button to me, but I don't think so. And you can download all of them, right? And read them at night if you have insomnia. All right. So we've gone through that. Here's another little script, which I think is pretty good. About what I used to do is remind people. Sometimes this works, sometimes not. When they bought the house, did they ask for stuff? Did they offer full price? Did they ask the seller to pay credit? Did you? Right. And so what Diana is saying here, this buyer is exactly like you. They want to save money too. They're only doing what buyers always do. Right? You understand? It's not. Can you understand, however, how some people might take this personally? Right? How some owners might take it personally. And that's, by the way, why agents are better at negotiating than having them do it themselves. I mean, the most obvious one is carpets that the owners think are adorable, but everybody else sort of gags when they see it, right? And the buyer wants them ripped out. The wife is saying, "No way will I live here with those carpets," and somebody has to explain to the owner that they want the carpets replaced, right? Now, in this market, that doesn't come up, but I've, I think I said once, well, I think they're colorblind, so they just really can't see what a nice rosé color your thick carpets are. All right. 2010 NAR buyers and sellers revealed 84% of buyers consider negotiation skills to be very important when working with a real estate agent. One of the things that you have to think about is how do you differentiate yourself from every other real estate agent? A metaphor that I have used is the wallpaper. Most real estate agents are like wallpaper, in that what wallpaper is a pattern repeated over and over and over and over again. They look alike, they sound alike, what they do sounds exactly the same. Every real estate agent can say, I'm going to set up a search in the MLS and send you properties by email of homes that meet your criteria. Right? Do you understand? I think a chimp could be trained to do that. Right? You understand? They can do it themselves. If the only reason you have why somebody wants to work with you as a buyer, for example, is because you have access to a computer, right? Do you understand? That's not a very good reason. That's not a compelling reason. How about if you were able to demonstrate and discuss negotiation skills and how that could get the buyer more house for less money? How about that? Just get the buyer a house right now, right? This, of course, assumes you have negotiation skills, right? And by the way, KW has a bunch more classes on this, right? Including the DISC. Anybody mentioned that to you? Profile because one of the problems is that oftentimes we have our profile and we show it to everybody all the time. There's an old saying that if the only tool you have is a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail, right? You know, and everything is, you're pounding on everything, but different people have different profiles, and if you can recognize that.
I haven't get my disc result.
You haven't gotten it? You can do it. If you send me an email, I have a free one that you can do. If you were, I already have done this, but if I were to, I like, as I've mentioned, videos, and if I were to go to video, and I typed in DISC profile.
Well, we did that as part of our.
When we signed the contract,
Right.
But I haven't, do you know your result?
Yeah,
How about this, however? How good are you at identifying it in others and adapting your negotiations to fit their profile? That's a different question than knowing what yours is. How good are you at this, by the way, is also called behavioral styles. Behavioral styles, the 4 behavioral styles, DISC behavioral styles. Now, by the way, I've gone for long videos, but look at this is an hour-long video. There's the idea here is I'm not necessarily saying that you need to. Would this be an area that you might want to spend some time on? Negotiation skills, right? And when we have classes, you might want to go to them, right? We just had one, but we have lots of classes. By the way, at KW, Keller Williams has something called Family Reunion, which is coming up in February. At Century 21, we called it the convention. It's the same idea. They have lots of training programs. It's not, you have to go there and you have to register and you have to stay there, and some people pair up and they share rooms, and there's different ways of doing it. But the most popular topic at the Keller Williams Family Reunion are classes on negotiation. Right? Just saying. You might want to. Isn't it a good thing that doctors had to go to school for 12 years before they start operating on people? Right? Do you think that's a good thing? Right? Would it be, but real estate agents who get a license can just go out and start hammering away, right? So I would be, if you want to be in the percentage of people that stay in the business and who make serious money in the business, you might want to invest in learning about the business, and the Family Reunion is a great way to do it. If you want to get some examples, there's a section on KW.com called Agent Mountain, which you can find if you type Agent Mountain, and you'll see videos from past family reunions. If you were to go to video search in Google and you were to type in Keller Williams family reunion, you'll find a whole bunch of videos that come up that people have made of different things, right? Sometimes without Keller Williams' permission. But anyhow, I'm just saying you might want to get an eye. Where I'm going with this is I would recommend that you go to this. It's in February. I would recommend that you go to
Are
this.
they really good classes?
They're really good classes. Right. These are really good classes. That's why I was saying you could see some examples if you wanted to. But these are really good classes. Right? I'm just saying.
I don't know, I was searching, trying to find a video or YouTube, anything, anyway, class, like negotiation and everything. And then when I click, I can't remember, I went technology resources or education. It's price, as I said, like CD, I think.
Well, if I go to negotiation skills, this is Google video search, and I type in negotiation skills, and I go down here and I click on long. If you're looking at short ones, what those are promos for courses. These are ads, right? If it's 0 to 4 minutes, they're not doing anything but sending an ad. Here is a 72-minute video from the ACP. I don't know who they are, but most of some of them are for job seekers. They're on different subjects, but it looks like that you could find a lot of stuff, and some of them are done. One of the things I found is just because they're being done for some educational institution, they're all talking about the same stuff, right?
But you know what? Each one, I've taken 2 negotiation classes, and each one was different in a different way. Each instructor had a different way of teaching it, and it gave you kind of like levels of understanding how to negotiate. And it seems like each one's different. Same material, different.
Anyhow, you could spend your whole life doing this, but we can talk more. I would go to family reunion and take some of the classes that they have in negotiation, because they're going to make it specific to real estate. All right, prepare. We're talking about the 3 Ps. The first one is prepare, think and act strategically. Know your goal. Generally, it's to sell a house. But that might mean that you have to know their goal, which is to remind the client of the reasons for moving in the first place. Know your client. Make sure you understand their goals. Think ahead. One of the advices that I give for, like, this is true for a listing presentation or for an offer presentation, is to make a list of all the questions that you think the other person is going to ask. And then make a list of all the objections that you think the other side is going to have. And then look at those and spend some time coming up with what are you going to say, right? When they say, well, what if the house doesn't appraise? You understand that you need to think ahead. Set clear expectations. It's better to under-promise and over-deliver. Right? So don't tell them, I know they're going to accept the offer. You don't know they're going to accept the offer. They'll be crazy not to accept your offer. Don't say that, even if you think it's true. Because you never know. Be informed. Ask open-ended questions and you have active listening to find out as much as you can about the other party. This assumes that you can talk to the listing agent.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
you are going to put to video, right, this class?
I'm videotaping it. Yeah, that's right. If you haven't, I don't know why, but I'm doing it.
You have to, because...
I'm doing it right now. Look at right.
You promised me finish by 10:30, but I have to go MLS today.
I said you could go at 10:30, didn't I?
Yeah,
Right.
but you said you try to finish class by...
Oh, well, I have 1 more minute.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go over a little bit, but not much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. The ancient Chinese proverb, to listen well, I've heard it, there's a reason you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That's so you can listen twice as much as you talk. The person who talks less and finds out the most information possible is the one who's probably going to do better in negotiation. The one who's talking a lot is probably not going to do as well. Do you understand? One person is giving out information and the other person is receiving information, and I'd rather be the receiver in the negotiation. Leverage E-edge, comply with regulations, obey the laws. No, this is a really important one. Know the documentation inside and out. That means the California Association of Realtors standard contract. Right? And again, I guess I'm sort of giving a pitch for Guy Berry has a set of CDs that go through the contract. There's also the board at times has classes that you can attend on the contract. Do you understand? You really need to know these forms. Right? You really need to know the forms. You really need to know the forms. Okay? Prepare to negotiate. There's a scenario below, and we're going to do this individually. I don't really think I told Coco I'd be done by 10:30, but I don't know. Maybe I did.
You're gonna try, but I know.
I lied. How about that? I'll go with that. I lied.
That's on video.
That's okay.
It's on video. It's okay. I had it. No, I don't. Anyhow, prepare to negotiate. Stop and do. What I want you to do is to read the scenario below, identify key areas in which you need more information or uncertainty, and write down specific questions you would ask your client. So you're going to read the scenario and write out some questions about the scenario. Don't worry about the fact that the prices seem low. All right. How are we doing? Does everybody have your 3 questions? Almost. All right. Let's plow. Anybody like to share some of the questions you'd ask? Don't everybody board them out at once. Sure, Ross.
Okay, so the difference in price, the 175 versus the 155 that you want to offer is 20,000. If you do the math, that's only adds up to about $50 a month house payments over the life of the loan. Are you willing to lose the home for the $50 a month?
Yeah, that's called the reduced to the ridiculous close, right? And so what you would do is if you have a calculator, right, and you're paid some attention to this, what you take the amount that we're talking about times the interest rate, because they're financing it probably, and you figure out what that is on a monthly basis, right? Because $20,000 sounds like a lot of money right now, but if it's financed as part of a loan, it's a Starbucks card a month, right? Sometimes people then divide it by 30 to come up with how much we're talking about a day, right? That's the really reduced to the ridiculous. How much a day is that, right? Well, probably $1.25 a day, right? Then you can't even buy a cup of coffee. Right, any others?
What I would do is I would say, first of all, get her to reaffirm why she wants this house. Of all the homes that you have seen, is this the home that you really want? What makes this home special for you? And you wait and let her state what she wants to and what she likes about it. And you go on and you say, it appears that there's a great deal of activity on this listing. How important is it to you to get this house?
Mm-hmm.
All right, is you get her to commit, and then go to the money and say, okay, how much can you really afford in monthly payments for the house? Wait, help her figure out what she has to work with. We already know how much she has down, and then go to the ridiculous,
Right.
Figuring out how much it's really going to cost her over the
Right.
month.
The reducing it down to a daily, weekly, or monthly amount is a standard technique, which is very effective, right? Because then they're thinking about how much money a day we're talking about, and it's generally not that much, but that's good. Related to that is, you go back to everybody would like to keep their house payments low, right? Would you like your payments to be as low as possible? Of course, right? But they also want to get the house they want. Right, and which is more important? Usually, there's a conflict between those two. Any others? Yes.
Well, I wasn't quite sure how to put it into the question, but I was thinking about the weekly, and appears to have evidence of a weekly. Doesn't sound like there's actually a report or an inspection on that, and I'm thinking that $20,000 might end up could end up covering the at list price with a contingency that, you know, that on the inspection and possible roof repair.
That's very good. One of the things that the standard contract says is that the property is being purchased as is, subject to buyer's inspection rights. That's virtually verbatim out of the CAR contract. So, could we get a roof inspection? Yeah.
Right, okay, and so then, subject to the contingency of the roof inspection, then once you're in contract, could we possibly negotiate for a lower selling price?
Or at least the roof repairs. The thing about the roof that you would want if you're a buyer is a 1-year leak-free warranty from a licensed roofing contractor. If you write that in the offer, they're probably going to say no. But what you would do is when you hire a roof inspector, what they'll do is they'll give you a dollar amount, and coupled with the dollar amount is a 1-year leak-free warranty. Basically, they're warranting that there won't be a leak for at least 1 year, and they'll fix it for free. Sometimes you can get a longer warranty. Sometimes it costs more to get a longer warranty. But what you want, you see, to me, I didn't want to discuss roof repairs without a roof report, without a roof inspection. I did not want to discuss the roof until I had an inspection report. It's like talking to the doctor, I have a hurt foot. And he's saying, well, we'll have x-rays taken. And, well, can you talk to me what I should do now? He's going to say, no, I'm not going to talk to you about cures now. I want to see the x-rays, right? And then once I see the x-rays, then I'll tell you what I think you ought to do. Right? And so we need to get a roof inspection, right? It might have been fixed. It might have leaked and been fixed. But we have an inspection period. It's called the property condition contingency or the property inspection contingency. And you'd get a report. And then you could negotiate it. What does as is means?
Whatever defects in the house.
What?
Whatever defects in the house,
It
has to be sold like this.
Right. It means that the seller isn't starting off by obligating themselves to fix stuff. But then the buyer contingency is basically saying the buyer is not obligated to buy unless the buyer is satisfied with the condition of the property. So those two things are going to hit each other. You see, that's why as a listing agent I want the roof report. Right? I want the roof report. Because it could be $5,000. It could be $500. It could mean that they need a new roof. Right? And $20,000 would buy you a lot of roof repair, right? It'd buy a lot of roof repair.
Really expensive.
Well, a real expensive roof repair. All right. So that was fun. You get the idea. You need, a lot of times when it comes to negotiation, what you need is more information. And as Mr. Berry talked about the other day, and you've heard me mention, you want to get all the inspections and all the reports. All right? You want to get all the inspections. You want to have a chimney. You want to have a roof. You want to have, if it's an older home in the right kind of a neighborhood, a foundation. You want a property inspection. You want everything, a termite. They all inspect. There's some overlap, but they inspect different things. We're going to have a class where I'm going to drag in these people. Right? I already got a guy for the property inspection. Right? And we're going to go through, because you're going to need to learn how to read them. All right.
Do you have inspectors that Keller Williams recommends?
There's a couple that are on our list of approved vendors.
Because there are the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, House Masters is the one I'm going to have come in. I've used them before. So, but do you understand that one of the other things that you need to learn among this whole body of things that you need to learn is you need to learn about inspections and reports and how to read them. And you need to understand what are the different building components. I can remember the first time I showed a termite inspection to a buyer, and the buyer was reading it faster than me. I hadn't read it yet. And he said, "What's a soffit?" I was like, "What?" He said, "A soffit. It says here there's dry rot on the soffit. What's that?" And I was like, "Well, Well, there's a hard and a soft. So I didn't know. Right? Do you understand? That doesn't look very good to say. I don't know. It's part of the house, I guess. I don't know. Google search it. We'll figure it out. It's the underside of an eaves, and usually there's dry rot on them because they're exposed and things like that. So do you understand that you might want to know the anatomy? If you were talking to a doctor and the doctor said, "I'm going to give you a shot with the what is it, the pointy thing? The what do they call that? Anyhow, and we're going to do it." Let's see, what do they call the one that goes not to the heart, but from which one? Right, you'd be thinking he doesn't even know the words, right? He doesn't even know the names of stuff, right? So as a realist, you should know the names of stuff, right?
Right.
Right.
I really need those classes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very important.
So but I'm going to include, by the way, this is something that hasn't normally been done in Ignite, but I'm including classes on inspections and reports and disclosures. And I'm going to drag in the different inspectors and a home warranty company, and they're going to go through. Home warranties are very important, right? Because, by the way, it's also an answer to an objection. We're going to get you a home warranty, and if the thing breaks, you're going to be able to get it fixed for a small amount of money. Move into the negotiation process by stating your current offer and listening to the response. So to present, you call the co-op agent to let them know that the offer is coming or the counter-offering is coming. And then you can invite them into the buying loop in eEdge. We're going to talk about that in other classes. I'm not going to get into the point of this is that you're going to want everybody to be into the My Transactions section so that you can do signatures electronically. Because what may happen, it says you don't want to have a whole bunch of offers and counter offers. Sometimes there's a whole bunch of them. It's like watching a tennis match, right? Is it going back and forth, and driving around to get people to sign stuff when all you're doing is making a little tiny change, right? Do you understand? I'm just telling you, if you're busy, you don't want to drive to Milpitas to have at rush hour to have buyers sign something that only involves a little tiny change when you could have sent it to them electronically, they could have signed it electronically, and it could have gone to the other side. All right, this will drive you crazy if you don't learn how to use electronic signatures. Pay attention to nonverbal cues. If you can see them, that's easier. Otherwise, on the phone, you want to listen for certain cues. Keep quiet. Once you present an offer, don't say, sometimes whoever talks next loses, right? I mean, sometimes that's it. And there's silence, and do you understand you want them to make the offer? All right, you say, this is what I want, and then stop. Don't say, well, I hope that's going to be okay with you. Because, I guess if maybe then we, if that's, I mean, you just thought I'd like you. You just say it and then you wait, even if it's uncomfortable. If you're there in person, I tell agents, don't wiggle, right? Don't wiggle around. Like, just wait. Think of something peaceful. Okay? Listen carefully to what is important to the other party. Rather than just saying, well, my clients want this. Oh, but they're really not. I don't care. My clients want this, right? Listen, stay calm and relax. This isn't your house. Keep your emotions out of it, right? Even if they're mad, I've had buyers that were mad and sellers that were mad, but the agents, yeah. Sounds like your client's really angry. Yeah, he gets like that. All right, That's why they have agents.
Agents are always in critical position.
Right. So what we're going to do is write down, we're going to take only 2 minutes to do this. That's the time allocated. Write down as many nonverbal cues that you could think of. We threw in some suggestions that suggest negotiation is going positive or negative. Now, if you're face to face, what things might you see that would be considered positive and negative? 2 minutes. Yeah.
There's a way on, you can show us or teach us on e-edge how to invite the other agents?
Yeah.
Okay.
I may not do that personally. There's a My Transactions ebook and My Transactions sections of
You
training.
can invite the other agents.
Right, it's real
to view
simple.
the offer.
Yeah, it's really simple. There's a free version that CAR has called Digital Ink. It's a little tedious. It's a little confusing. I used to do classes on it because everybody wanted a free one. DocuSign is a lot easier to use, but it requires a subscription. And the one that Keller Williams has is closer to DocuSign. It's a lot easier to use. And there's videos on it. It's not that difficult to do. But you do need to know the other agent's name and email address. All right. So, what are some positive face-to-face signs?
Smiling.
Smiling,
Head nod up and down.
nodding,
Couple looks at each other, kinda,
roll their eyes.
no, kinda positive and like,
Nodding,
yeah.
nodding,
Yeah.
not nodding like that, but what would be some negatives? What would be some negatives?
Brown, folded arms.
Tight.
Eye rolling.
Eye rolling, frowning, folded arms, sweaty palms.
Eyes bug out. Shock.
Slurs, yeah.
Yeah.
Eyes rolling, looking at the, even looking away, not making eye contact. How about on the phone? Because unfortunately, a lot of this may be on the phone.
Voice inflection.
Voice inflection,
Wilting.
Yelling at you.
yelling, screaming at you, cursing, cursing,
Silence.
Silence.
Criticizes,
sighing.
Voice lowers and it gets very controlled and.
Yeah. So, sometimes flat voices, monotone. Usually people talk faster when they're more excited.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So like this on the phone, I had a chat yesterday with the listing agent
Yeah.
regarding that deal. He was very soft. He was very calm. When he called, he was like, you know what, bank only wants non-appraisal contingencies. What would I expect?
Well, that's an REO lender. We're not going to have. You're not going to have to deal with those agents much longer, right? They're going to have trouble because they're going to have real people that they have to represent, right? But the banks basically say this is what we're doing. That's it, and so he doesn't care. He doesn't. You know, this is the way it is, right? Why he's not excited. The bank isn't excited. You can yell at him; it won't make any difference. He's not going to yell at the bank; it wouldn't make any difference. Nothing's going to make any difference, right? He has no control, right? So I can't help you with that. But all right, well that's good. You get the idea that you want to pay attention to this. As it says here, negotiations is one of the most popular breakout topics at family reunion. You should try to go. There's also what we're going to do is cover some of these tactics, and then and there's nibbling. Right. This is one concession, the other party they'll keep asking. I've done this. I've had a list, and I would put the easy one first. You know, they're wondering if you replace the screen, on the front door because there's a lot of holes in it. Oh yeah, sure. And then and they just keep asking and asking and asking. And then one of the techniques for stopping this is to nibble back. Right, to start asking, every time they ask you for something, ask them for something, if you can think of something. The hot potato is throwing it back, right? They keep throwing it around, they can't afford it. Well, my clients can't afford it either, right? You understand? We can't afford to fix it. Well, my clients can't afford to fix it either, right? And then the good cop, bad cop thing, where you say, well, look, I understand. I always used to say the same thing. I understand how you feel. I really do. I'm with you. I feel for you. But these people just, they're really hot about it. That's.
That was actually
Press the button on the side and stop.
If you throw it against the wall really hard,
Sorry.
Commercial.
You turned this stupid thing off.
there's a button on the side that usually, if you push
Push
it.
both of them.
Ah, cool.
I was thinking one of the negative clues on the phone is if you hear yes, but.
But, yeah, the word but, yeah, or yeah, but,
Yeah, but
yeah, but.
probably not best.
So what we're not going to do this next exercise, but this is homework, right? And I want you to think about this. We're going to be positioning means acknowledge common ground. So to start with, well, we've agreed on this and we've agreed on that, haven't we? Ask how and why questions. Why is that important? What is important? Be willing to leave and come back to the table. Well, I don't think we're getting anything accomplished right now. Why don't we think about it? Why don't we sleep on it? Why don't we talk about it tomorrow? Here's some other tips. Remember your goal, a signed contract. It's really what people want. Control what you say to anyone involved in the transaction. Try not to yell at them. Get mad at them. Continually refer back to motivation. Remind sellers and buyers why they're doing this. Don't tell too much. Well, the seller is really desperate to sell because he's already accepted a job someplace else and they've made an offer on the property and they're going to have to close and don't be attached to the outcome. Don't let it affect your mindset if a deal doesn't go through. Right? It's a lot easier to negotiate if you don't care, right? In other words, if it's not going to work out for your clients, then we're not going to do it. What I would like to do is there's further study, keyword search negotiation on KW Connect. And you're going to see a bunch of videos on negotiation. Bulletproof the transaction, aiming high. I think I've talked about this already, but what couldn't go wrong? Unexpected, lots of things, unexpected findings and inspections, appraisals that don't support the price, delays with loan fund approval and funding, contingencies, poor communication, and missed deadlines. It says one of the things that you could do to help yourself is to have good solutions and scripts. Are there scripts on? Yeah, oh yeah. Maintain strong and frequent communication. And we're going to talk more about closing in Power Session 17, contract to close and post-close systems.
Question.
Yeah.
Selection of co-ops agent parts for a vendor, has that become an issue at times?
Where is this?
Last one under the bullet.
Poor communication or vendor selection on the co-op agent's part. Yeah. Well, what that means is that they pick.
Shitty home inspector, or, excuse me.
Yes, they pick. There was this termite company called Cagwin and Cagwin. And I would just, oh no, not them. And so sometimes you have to learn. See, as a listing agent, I wanted to get all the inspections done. And one of the things I would tell, one of the many things I would tell the seller is we get to pick the inspectors, right? And we're not going to be waiting for them. And then the buyer has the right to order their own inspections. The buyer probably should get a second opinion, but usually they're so happy that there's a set of reports that they don't have to pay for, they don't bother to do it, right? Which means we now have control over all of this. And I knew there's termite companies that would always look for something wrong because they wanted to do the fixing. See, property inspectors don't fix stuff, right? So they're a little more neutral. Termite companies fix stuff. If they don't fix stuff, then they don't make very much money. And so some of them are really, there are others, however, who don't do the fixing of the stuff. They only do the inspection. So that gives them a little more neutrality. Well, which one would you rather have? Now you see, if you're the buyer, you might want everything fixed, right? If they pick the wrong termite company, the difference can be dramatic in what the results are. So if I represent the seller, I want to pick who's going to do that inspection, right? And I want to have them done so we're not doing this in the middle of escrow.
If you have all the reports and the buyer wants to do one of his own reports, doesn't that put him at a disadvantage compared to?
Probably, but one, and there is a clause that you could have that says that the buyer accepts these reports. If I represented the buyer and I looked and you're the listing agent and you had all the inspections and I'm looking at the who did them and they're all people that I recognize, I would tell the buyer I would have recommended most of these people in the first place, and then we could remove that contingency, right? We could say we're not going to do any
So
inspections.
if you see an issue as a buyer's agent, then you would recommend?
I would say, well, I would have suggested all these same people,
Right.
and they've got everything. They got a chimney, they got a foundation, they got a roof, they got everything. You want to spend another $1,000 and hire, you understand? And so in the perfect world, the buyer would get their own, you'd get 5 of them, right? Why not, right? But in this market, because as I said, representing the seller, they want to make sure that this thing is going to close without a hitch, right? That's what they want. They're already getting more money than they thought because it's above list price. They want to make sure it's going to close, and if you can remove the inspection contingency, right? Say we're waiving that. We're accepting your reports. By the way, as a listing agent, I had a clause that says the buyer that I would sometimes put in the counter offer. Because if I got 10 offers, I might counter them all. There's a way of countering them all at once and putting in a clause that says that the buyer accepts the reports that the seller has and is not going to get any more.
So, a lot of times, you wind up getting reports that are not accurate, and as a buyer's rep, you're going around looking at the property. It's real, like one time, it was really obvious that there was a termite infestation in the roof and around the eaves and things like that, but the report said everything was clear. And I thought it looked suspicious, so we got another termite inspection. Turned out the whole roof had to be replaced, and the sublayment too.
Well,
So-
but you see, it depends. There's always a depends,
Yeah.
right?
So there's a liability if you
Right.
accept the report.
But it all depends. Let's say you've looked at the house and there isn't anything obvious, and they've used a real termite inspector. I mean, there were certain people we knew had bad reports,
Yeah.
right? Either on one hand, there are people that you think the inspector must have had a guide dog and a white cane, right? When they look, because they didn't see anything, and on the other hand, it's like Sherlock Holmes with the magnifying glass, looking at every little thing and writing it down, right? Those are the extremes. So I mean, what I'm saying has to be modified. But if there's 10 offers and they really want to buy this house, and there's nothing visibly wrong with the property, and they have an inspection done by somebody you recognize and trust that you would have used on your own, why not accept that report, right?
So they as beginners, though, don't have that knowledge.
I know that, but you have coaches, don't you, and team leaders and others, right, that have been around a while. What? And mentors, too. All right, with all the talk, the win-win or no deal, the WI4C2TS, right, which you're going to, if you don't know what that means, you can. I'm going to have it on the back of my new set of business cards, but you'll find it on the wall around the office. And the W stands for win-win or no deal. And the idea here is that what we mean by that is that you have to put the customer first. Win-win or no deals means that the agent will never do anything that put their interest ahead of the customer's. In other words, you don't want to close on a transaction when the buyer doesn't want to buy it. Right? You understand? Talking people into buying houses they really don't want. What will happen is that you will meet lawyers if you do this. If you talk people into buying homes they really don't want, you're going to meet attorneys. right? You're going to get to know some of them. You'll get to know others because you'll be sitting at one table and they'll be sitting at the other table, right? You'll get a chance to practice your public speaking skills in front of juries, right? I'm not kidding, right? If you don't want to push people into buying a house they don't want. I've told people don't close. If you're not happy, just don't close. Don't buy it then, right? Because I don't want to meet lawyers, right? They're like dentists, I guess. Isn't that right? No, that's not right. You don't want to see them. Well, because bad blood is to lawyers as bad teeth are to dentists, right? Isn't that incisive? Oh, well, never mind. So, the professional's creed. This, by the way, comes from The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, a book which I assume you've all read by now. I'm a professional. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And I know the difference between the two. When I know, I'll tell you. When I don't know, I'll go find out. My top priority is that you always get the right answer. I'm a professional. Right? I used to use somewhat different words, but I would say the same thing. This is a good way of saying it. So, for example, if there's something in a property inspection, and you're going to see this when I have the property inspection guy, they're going to say, further inspection recommended. Right? And so they're going to say, well, what does it mean? What do you think is wrong? What do you think the problem is? What's behind the wall? Well, you know what? Right? You don't want to volunteer, right? Because you don't. If they don't know, you don't know. Right? Isn't that right? And how many of you have general contractor licenses? Right? See, so I wouldn't. So the idea is one of the mistakes that new agents and used agents, well anyhow, used agents, not new agents, sometimes make is they feel that they always have to have an answer and give their opinion. If asked a question, they have to have an answer and give their opinion. This is a mistake. Right? Doctors, have you ever been to a doctor who sent you to a specialist? Ever had a dentist send you to a specialist? Right? If the answer is no, you haven't been to enough doctors yet. Right? Well, lawyers do the same thing. Say, well, I don't do tax. I would recommend that you talk to a tax lawyer about that. Right? You can say, well, you're a lawyer, aren't you? Didn't you take tax classes in law school? Tell me. They're going to say, no, I don't do that. Right? All right. So there's an action plan, which I know you're all checking off and doing, and you've printed out this page and you've got it taped in front of you when you're working and you're focused on it. I know that's what's going on. I just know it. Take every opportunity to attend negotiating training classes when they're offered at the market center or region. Attend win-win negotiations at family reunion. Block time on your calendar for studying the most commonly used contract forms. All right, and I've got some of Guy. If you're interested, let me know, because if I market it, you can save money if you want to buy his things. But you want to study, you ought to read. I used to make the joke that what brokers were paid to do essentially is because we'd read the contract. Because 90% of the questions an agent asks me are answered in the form someplace. Well, does it include this? What is the contract? I mean, I actually attended a seminar and it was called, What Does the Contract Say? All right? With a question mark. Your next session is Power Session 12, Find Seller Leads. Oh, all right, that's going to be tomorrow. To participate fully, a database, a phone, a daily planner, note cards, envelopes, business cards, daily 10-4 tracking, data from your MLS for your metropolitan area. We're going to talk more about that if you don't know how to do it. I'm going to show you a little bit. Sample flyers, examples of language from listing agents' websites, and access or a copy of the eEdge Touch Campaign for Sellers. All right? All their job aids, there's an eEdge 101 training guide for My Transactions, which you can download there. There is the eEdge Co-op Agent Guide and .loop Client Guide, which are things that you can send to the other agent and to your client that explains how it works. And of course, this afternoon you're going to be working on your daily 10-4s, right? All right? That's